A while ago, I put out a video suggesting one change for each job to ruin them. However, while some of the changes were received with horror, a bunch of them were also received with a "What do you mean ruin? This sounds awesome!" So let's try and make it even worse. One or multiple changes to make each job outright cursed in some way or another. Let's begin. Let's also start in reverse. Pictomancer. Living Muse, Striking Muse, and Starry Muse have their potencies and effects weakened just enough that using your filler rotation is barely better. This would mean that a Pictomancer would, in a full uptime fight, essentially only use, aside from the opener of course, Fire in Red, Subtractive Palette, Comet in Black, and Blizzard in Cyan, and of course their follow-ups. But hey, in a fight with a ton of downtime, Pictomancer is going to be amazing! Downtime sections are super common in Final Fantasy XIV in general, right? Right? Next, Viper. The buffs Swift Scaled and Hunter's Instinct now only last 20 seconds. Note that with 0 skill speed, it would take nearly 13 seconds to apply both buffs with just the 1-2-3 filler combo, so every time you do anything else, a buff would eventually drop. 20 seconds is also just about enough that using Reawaken right after applying the buffs with the Vicewinder combo, you would only barely be able to finish the burst and then use another Vicewinder combo to reapply the buffs before they end. A single misstep, or even choosing to use Uncoiled Fury more than once per buff application set, would lead to buff dropping. Fun. And then Sage. Cardia's healing is now 500 potency, but half of the healing done is taken as damage on another random party member. A new action, Cardia Off, is introduced to turn off Cardia when you don't need it, like tank stances. While this makes Cardia extremely effective in fights with heavy sustained damage, it also makes actually using Cardia really difficult and extremely weaving intense. It also means that a thoughtless sage could wipe their own party without even trying. Next up, Reaper. Harvest Moon's potency is tripled. However, Soul Sow can no longer be used out of combat. As Soul Sow takes 2 GCD's worth of time to cast in combat and Harvest Moon takes an additional GCD itself to be thrown, this averages, at max level, 800 potency per GCD invested, with Harvest Moon doing 2400 potency at max level. Absolutely insane, but would very likely make spamming this actually pretty decent. Coming up, Dancer. The filler combos are changed. Cascade now have a 50% chance to enable Fountain, which have a 50% chance to enable Reverse Cascade, which have a 50% chance to enable Fountain Fall, which then have a 50% chance to give a Feather. The same changes apply to the AoE combo. This would mean that on average, you have an about 6% chance per combo started to gain a Feather, and also only about 12% chance to get a full 1-2-3-4 combo. And then Gunbreaker. Everything has a continuation interaction now, including all OGCDs. All continuation actions deal damage and now also must be used before any other action can be performed. Bloodfest? Continuation. Blasting Zone? Continuation. Aurora? You guessed it, continuation. Super Bolide? That's right, continuation. On the one hand, this would make Gunbreaker have a hilarious damage potential. On the other hand, good luck actually weaving multiple defensive cooldowns in quick succession. Also, holding defensive cooldowns is a damage loss, and unfortunately it's going to really suck if you don't have an attack target. And then, time for Red Mage. When using Enchanted Riposte or Meulinet with enough mana to perform the full melee combo, it instead locks you into a cast with an accompanying cutscene and epic music where every step of the combo and magic burst is forcibly performed in sequence, including using Déplacement after Redoublement. You cannot move or cancel once the combo is started. The Déplacement is added for free and does play a funny sound effect should you backflip to your death. Finally, You can look as cool as you feel while you perform your burst. Surely, this won't be a problem ever. Next up, Samurai. Meditate no longer has a cooldown, and instead of its existing effect, increases the potency of your next GCD by 200%. If you channel the full 15 seconds. Moving from your current location cancels the effect. Tsubamegaishi will also do more damage if spent on an action interacting with this effect. Such a massive power boost definitely is worth sitting there for if the GCD you're using is strong enough. Optimally, your rotation could boil down to just 10 Dozetsugekas and Okinamikiris, and a lot of standing around. Surely, there's plenty of time to just stand there in difficult boss fights. Surely, the balancing of Samurai won't be wrecked by this. And now we have Astrologian. The damage cards and support cards are now separated, and Astrologian can now draw a damage card at any time. However, when drawing a card, it reduces the damage output of a target party member by 10% for 15 seconds. And the damage bonus of the card will depend on how much damage that party member lost as a result. A raid composition that focuses on raid buffs, and in particular stacking them on one super strong DPS, is often said to be feeding, as opposed to the concept of feeding in a PvP game. Now, you can force the other DPS to help feed the strongest player even more. I'm sure this won't cause any toxic behavior whatsoever. And speaking of a DPS, Machinist. Flamethrower's potency is increased to 200. It no longer has a cooldown, but only lasts 3 seconds. Take note that the live version of Flamethrower hits a total of 11 times, meaning spamming this button would almost certainly be optimal, or at least very effective regardless of target count. What do you mean that now Flamethrower doesn't have that effect where you press it and lean back anymore? Surely, that doesn't matter at all, right? And then Dark Knight. Dark Side is no longer granted by Edge and Flood of Shadow. Instead, Salted Earth lasts until you put down a new Salted Earth. Its potency is reduced, but as long as the Dark Knight stands in Salted Earth, they enjoy the damage bonus of Dark Side. I've heard players wanting Salted Earth to feel more like it does in PvP, where you gain a benefit from standing in it. Problem solved. What do you mean, once every 90 seconds isn't enough for PvE? Next up, Ninja. Your character has gotten so experienced at the job that it now helps you perform the mudras. Whenever you press an initial mudra sign, your character will automatically perform a second viable mudra sign. Don't worry, your character definitely knows what mudra you need. They even press it a bit faster than you could. Every time you get a Hyoton, you should simply have known that clearly a bind was needed here. Much more than the damage of Raiton or Katon. And while, sure, Kunai's Bane was just about ready, Doton was definitely the one you needed, not Suiton, right? I would say this could lead to some interesting tricks to play around. Starting a Suiton with Chi, because if the automatic mudra is Jin, at the very least you can still produce Huton, so it isn't completely ruined. Or starting with Jin for 2 mudra steps so that at the very least you aren't getting Hyoton. And then for Summoner, all of your summons have HP now. Also, they take full damage from AoE, we forgot about that part. They can also receive healing, barriers, and defensive cooldowns, and their max HP is equal to yours. They also have the capacity to generate enmity of their own. Now, if only Kabi had some attacks. I don't think I even need to explain how insanely awkward this will be. Summoner starts their opener, first raid wide, Solar Bahamut dies. Now, whether this would cancel the trance or just mean you don't have the summon to attack alongside you, I don't know, but certainly if Ifrit dies before he can cast Inferno, then no Inferno for you. Coming up, Black Mage. Despair now causes you to enter Astral Fire 4, which causes Fire 4, specifically Fire 4, to do 200% more damage rather than just 80%. Astral Fire 4 does not affect any other spell. Spells and abilities that change or add to your Astral Fire state will cause you to revert back to Astral Fire 3, or whichever state said action states. After all this time, we finally have determined the strongest spell in the Black Mage arsenal. What do you mean you can't use it? Super Ethers are right there. To be exact, you could do a normal Astral Fire state, finish with Despair, and then drink a Super Ether to cast one Fire Fall with a potency of 960, and then, also adding Enochian and Maim and Mend on top. Or you could use Despair while you still have 2 Umbral Hearts, and then the Super Ether covers 2 Fire Falls. Isn't that awesome? I'm actually wondering if this would actually be worth it. I imagine the fact that Super Ethers share cooldown with gem drafts would mean a big fat no, but you never know for sure. Moving on to Bard. Burst Shot, Heavy Shot, Ladon's Bite, and Quick Knock have all been removed. Additionally, Iron Jaw, Storm Bite, Caustic Bite, Venomous Bite, and Wind Bite no longer do upfront damage, but each dot tick instead has a chance to grant Hawk's Eye, enabling Refulgent Arrow and Shadow Bite. We've finally solved the problem of giving bards space for all of the weaves they need to do, by removing the majority of GCDs they will perform from the equation. It also reintroduces multi-dotting as a practice on AoE, as it will be your only option while waiting for Shadow Bite to proc. Surely, armies pay on doing almost nothing, since you don't have much to spend those GCDs on, won't be a problem. However, surely, having a job where ABC doesn't entirely matter definitely won't be cursed or weird, right? Up next, Dragoon. Heavy Thrust and Ring of Thorns have been added back into the game. Spiral Blow and Sonic Thrust no longer apply Power Surge, and their potencies have been adjusted to compensate. A little history lesson might be in order. Originally, Heavy Thrust applied the damage bonus that Spiral Blow, or Disembowel, applies. Heavy Thrust was a separate standalone GCD that broke the combo, so essentially each sequence started with Heavy Thrust, then the full Chaos Thrust combo, and then the full Thrust combo, and then start again. This peaked as essentially an 11 GCD loop in Stormblood. Oh, also, Heavy Thrust was a flank positional. Ring of Thorns was a combo follow-up for Heavy Thrust, which hit in a circle around the Dragoon as an AoE attack. As an option for when you inevitably had to use Heavy Thrust on AoE, although Ring of Thorns was removed in Stormblood. I'm sure deliberately breaking a combo like this on a single target every loop won't feel super awkward. And then we have Monk. Six-Sided Star's potency is now increased by 160 for each chakra open. At exactly level 80, Monk has a weird optimization trick, wherein if you can finish your Brotherhood and Riddle of Fire with as close to 10 chakras as possible, finishing your burst with Six-Sided Star can be an observable damage gain, because Six-Sided Star gets more value out of the chakras than Forbidden Chakra does. Now, imagine if Six-Sided Star got so much value out of the chakras that it was the optimal way to spend your chakras. So the flow of the Monk rotation frequently got interrupted by spending 4 seconds on Six-Sided Star. Coming up, Scholar. You like Energy Drain so much, then have it! Ether Flow is removed, instead Energy Drain has a 20-second cooldown and generates 1 Ether Flow and 7% MP. You can still hold up to 3 Ether Flow. I don't really have a good justification here, I just think this would be really funny. As long as you have a target to attack, the Ether Flow generation could be approximately the same. It could be a bit more fair if, say, Energy Drain could hold up to 3 charges, but this is about cursed changes, not cool changes. A little bonus history lesson here is that originally Arcanists learned Ether Flow very early, but only had 1 slot for the gauge. They also initially learned Energy Drain as their only spender. Gradually, they would unlock the 2nd and 3rd Ether Flow slots. Closing in on the end, we have White Mage, bringing the end. Afflatus Misery now does way more damage. However, something seems to have changed about the White Mage's demeanor. Afflatus Solace and Afflatus Rapture now, instead of healing, steals a portion of HP from a single party member or the whole party to feed the Blood Lily. Once it has been fed sufficiently, Afflatus Misery can be used. Like a bit of a callback to the cursedness of the Sage Cardia change, wouldn't it be really funny if White Mages worked by using their regular GCD heals to keep the raid alive, and then used their Afflatus spells to basically hinder themselves for the sake of feeding the Blood Lily. Now, I wonder how much potency Afflatus Misery would need to justify this, and I'm sure no one will ever get toxic with a tool like this. Ever. And moving on to Warrior with a similar kind of ironic twist. The Warrior toolkit has so much self-healing that we decided to remove the Beast Gauge. Instead, Fell Cleave and Decimate costs 20% of your current HP. A bit reminiscent of how Warrior spends HP a bit in PvP. Infuriate simply grants Nascent Chaos, enabling Inner Chaos and Chaotic Cyclone. They have the same cost. This change is brutal in multiple ways. I'm not even sure where to start. As the cost is current HP, the less HP you actually have left, the cheaper it is to use. Additionally, as it costs HP, as long as you have HP to spare, why would you use anything else, unless it would be to set up or maintain Surging Tempest? In a party context, surely the healers won't hate you for eating up all their supplies keeping you alive, and even better, when they do and then complain, you can complain back that they should just keep you low so you can spam for cheaper. I'm sure this won't ever lead to any toxicity whatsoever. And finally, Paladin. These whippersnappers have gone soft. Nothing breaks combo anymore. You know what? Let's change that. The Atonement combo is now a combo, and it breaks the Royal Authority combo. Conversely, the Royal Authority combo also breaks the Atonement combo. Holy Spirit also breaks both combos. Clemency too. I am perfectly aware this just means you have to essentially do 1, 2, 3 Holy Spirit, 4, 5, 6, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 Holy Spirit, and nothing else. But genuinely, that is exactly why the game has introduced conveniences such as a ton of action is no longer breaking combos. Imagine if it didn't. Also consider that it wasn't until 6.4 that Atonement stopped breaking combos. So what do you think? Do you think these changes were appropriately cursed, or do you think it could be even worse? Did you have a, I would say favorite, but I guess what I really want to know is which one you hate the most? And also, how would you make a cursed change to a job? Whether it is for your main for the memes or to dunk on your most hated job. I would love to hear about them in the comments. Now, that is all for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you would like to support me and my channel more directly, you can become a member like these wonderful people here. You can also alternatively support me through Ko-Fi, link in the description. You can also support the channel by letting the YouTube algorithm know by liking the video, leaving a comment, subscribing, sharing, and hitting the bell to get notified when next I post a video. Fun fact, originally Warrior's Inner Beast, Gauge Spender, only available in its tank stance as opposed to damage stance, both healed a ton and, at a certain point, also reduced damage taken for a while. Not that it mattered, once Fell Cleave had been implemented, the warriors had found their true love. Slightly more damage.